One of the best things about my job is I get to talk to a lot of really cool people and I get to talk to them about the different issues that are happening here in Oregon that's going to directly affect people here in Southern Oregon as well. And we're going to be talking about tolling, road tolling. And some are pro, some are con, depending on who you talk to, and it's something that it changes from individual to individual because party affiliation doesn't seem to dictate whether a person is for tolling or against tolling. I have found myself. So this is one of those issues that will bring people together from both parties, and will also do the same as having people who criticize this initiative for voting before tolling. People might criticize that from both parties. So we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about tolling because I think it's an interesting aspect, and I think there are some things to it that you may not realize. And I've got someone who I think is pretty well, he has a lot of expertise on road tolling, and at least I know he has an expertise on the road vote before road tolling initiative. And joining me right now is, gosh darn it, Dean Suhr. Dean Suhr joining me right now. I was getting ready to call you David, and I knew that was wrong. So I'm glad I looked down and saw your name on the screen. So how you doing today, Dean?
I'm good. Thanks, Rob, for having me on here. I really appreciate your introduction with the meteors. You know, where I'm from in West Linn, we've got a meteor sitting down on our main street because we actually have one of those here in town. But let's talk about tolling.
Tolling. And this is, like I was saying at the beginning here, is that I'm betting that you're finding some Republicans who think it's a great idea and some Republicans who don't, and the same way with Democrats. So it's kind of something that's erodes the party lines and goes right straight to individual preference, doesn't it?
It does. It isn't truly a nonpartisan issue. And there've been surveys, of course, over the years, and we'll talk some about that. But basically, we are 92% plus, the community, 92% plus opposed to tolling. When you get into the Multnomah County area, I'm in Clackamas County, so on the suburbs of Multnomah County. When you get into the Multnomah County area, it's still above 75% opposed to tolling. So oftentimes we think of them as the hub of, the buses and the bicycles and the Macs and those sorts of things. Even there, they're opposed to tolling. And the real challenge is because tolling hits everybody. It costs everybody that drives, and we all drive. The usage on transit systems is low single digit percentages. Everybody drives, and everybody is affected by this. And I do have to say that the root of the tolling issue also has to do with money, and we do need money for our roads. So we can have a conversation, a discussion about that as well. But I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, and there are different aspects to it, and it's something that I think it's a great idea to have an initiative to ask the voters whether they want tolling or not. For myself, I have no problem with tolling if it's on new construction. My problem is they have a lot of tolling that they want to put on things like the I-5 that we've already paid for several times over, and now they want us to pay for it again with tolling. And on top of that, the gas tax isn't going to be decreased because of the tolling. So all we're really doing is just generating new revenue through a new revenue stream, right?
Exactly. And any of you that have driven on toll roads, be that in the Northwest, or certainly if you're from the East, or visited back there, you know that once a toll goes in place, there's two rules. It never goes away, and it never goes down. And you're absolutely correct. The absurdity with the proposal that ODOT put together, they were tasked by the state legislature from some legislation in 2017. So that's a number of years ago, to investigate and implement congestion-based tolling. Their goal supposedly was to change our driving behavior and get us, they actually said, get out of your cars, which is ironic. You want to raise money by tolling, but now you want us out of our cars so we don't pay for tolls. So that's kind of a bad business model, if you ask me anyhow. But it was only on a couple of segments of highway up here in the Portland metro area. It wasn't the whole region. So why should one or two small regions pay for tolling when the whole region is benefiting from that, or would get the cash from it? And in both cases, they weren't adding any more capacity. They weren't solving the congestion problem. So it was just a really poor proposal. This was in the midst of COVID. I got invited to a Starbucks. We drank coffee outside, socially distanced, and talked about this. And for whatever reason, this really resonated with me. And I said, we can do better here in Oregon. And we don't have tolls here. We have historically had a few tolls. The original I-5 bridge, the Astoria Bridge, some other bridges had tolls on them. When that construction was paid off, when that new bridge or that new road was completed, the tolling went away. There are a couple of tolls on bridges on the north side of Oregon, farther east of here, that are county and port bridges, and they have been in place forever. And this particular initiative does not affect those two bridges, but it's not I-5 and it's not 205 and it's not, Highway 101 and all those sorts of things, which tolling is now looking to capture cash from.
Which would be ironic, because I go back to, we've already paid for Highway 101, and every year part of the highway is destroyed. And it's something, I mean, we have a joke, we have a running joke in Coos County, be prepared to stay the night when you go to Curry County, because, and we're connected, and it's not that far away, but when you drive 101, there's always a chance that it might not be there when you get back. And so, tolling, like I said, I really wouldn't have that much of a problem with it. And I don't think a lot of voters would, if we were talking about tolling new roads in extension to the current existing roads, so that you would pay for those construction. And that's what I experienced in Texas just recently. I went there and they had these toll roads. And of course I was like, why isn't anyone on those roads? And my grandmother says, well, they pay for those roads. You have to pay for them. And I said, oh, what the hell, And I took the toll roads, and they were a little bit more expensive than I thought. That was kind of surprising, but I have to admit, I got there in a lot less time. There was a lot less traffic congestion, but that's kind of what I paid for. This isn't the deal in Oregon. In Oregon, you're going to be tolled for the same traffic congestion and the same amount of highway lanes that you're paying for now. And it's mind-boggling that they would just try to sell this as some kind of new package.
Yeah, so let's back that up a little bit. You're exactly correct, by the way. There's not a capacity adding proposal, and so there's two things about that are critical. One is the population, certainly up in the northern part of Oregon, is growing. They're planning for it to grow. So I appreciate the folks that say, if you add more capacity and if the population stays the same, then you just have more people driving and pollution and all that. And I get that. And I like to minimize my driving and be efficient. I think we all should do that. But the regional growth is there. And we're seeing that all across the state, in north, south, east, can't go much more west than here, but even so at the coast. But the region is growing, so we need capacity, and we need to be proactive about that. We're going to spend close to $9 billion billion on a new I-5 bridge into the state of Washington. And yes, that needs to be rebuilt. It does not have enough capacity. It's built on wooden pilings. Those wooden pilings are amazing. I don't know how they get them to stand up, but they do. They've been there for 100 years-ish. That's another podcast. But so work needs to be done on that. But they're not going to add any capacity. And that bridge, just like the current bridge, has been there for 50 and 60 years for each. It's actually two bridges, and they were built separately. But will whatever they spend $9 billion on have enough capacity for 40 or 50 years from now? And the answer is no, it doesn't have enough capacity for today. Right. The second thing is the crux of this is really, and I came in fully transparently. I said, tolling the way they propose it is a mess. I want to pay for my roads. I want to pay fairly. I want to make sure there's good roads in rural Oregon, even though I don't drive most of them. I mean, I go on vacation occasionally like the rest of you do, but that's where our goods and services come from. And that's how we as a population, as a society, support each other, right? We want the farmers and all the other, industries and so on that are not in the middle of the city. to be healthy, so that those that are in the city can survive. And likewise, those in the city need to contribute their services and their products also out. And then in this case, some cases it's revenue as well. But ODOT's budget has doubled over the last 10 years. And that doesn't include the multiple billions with a B of dollars that came in post-COVID as the transportation, what do they call it? The Infrastructure Improvement Act or something like that. You know,
Right.
the Build Back Better stuff that came out of COVID.
Right.
Build Back
Yes.
Better, I think it was, yeah. So many things from DC, they just twist my tongue. But doubling their budget in 10 years, do you all have twice the capacity or half the number of potholes, or a new bridge where you need it, or a Highway 101 that doesn't collapse every year? Maybe, I appreciate the hills are moving, so you're going to have problems, but you don't want to see the same old stuff every year, or like you say,
Right.
make sure you bring your MasterCard, because you're going to have to get in a motel. It's just absurd. So with tolling is new to Oregon, and this initiative is retroactive to House Bill 2017. So it goes back to basically the beginning of 2018 for any new tolls. So it covers any new tolls that are being proposed. And the idea is that we get in front of ODOT, and if they want to do tolling, that they need to be transparent about it. And they also need to engage the public so that we understand. And I think the first question is what you started off this podcast with: where's that capacity? What are we paying for? So how is the money going to be used? How are the folks that can't afford the toll and they start driving the side roads and they get diversions, if they can do that? How where do they drive, and what are the offsets for that? Do we need more crosswalks or signage, or traffic reduction mitigation efforts, and so on? This requires a vote. So vote before actually turns out to be the bigger issue when we talk about our representatives in Salem, and ODOT is like, that we would challenge what they think is best for us,
Right.
scares the bejeebers out of them. So this gives us the right to do a regional vote. It's within 15 miles of wherever they're tolling. It's the counties that, as a crow flies, are within 15 miles. So if y'all put a toll over the Siskiyous up here up in Portland, we wouldn't be voting on that. On the interstate bridge toll, you all down south and towards the west won't be voting on that. So it's regionalized in how that voting goes. But it's a pretty good, even though it says 15 miles, unless you're way over in Eastern Oregon where the counties are huge and there's a single road that doesn't, is not near anything,
Right.
Which, by the way, is an ideal tolling target, right? Any place there's
Right.
a river, a mountain, or only a single highway, well, that describes pretty much the whole state of Oregon. That's perfect for tolling. Once ODOT has the tolling infrastructure in place, all the computers and software, and then they put that first, whatever those sensor things are that read the electronic tag that you'll stick to your windshield. Once they do that in one place, how easy is it to put another one of those 10 miles away, or 100 or 200 miles away someplace else? And guess what? If you don't have a tag, they'll take your license plate picture and they'll send you an inflated bill for that.
I was going to say, I didn't buy anything special to drive on the toll roads in Texas. So as I was getting on the toll roads, that was my exact question. Well, I didn't pay anybody, and how do they know? And sure as heck, like you said, a month later, they sent me a bill from the state of Texas. Mr. Taylor, please, you owe me such and such amount. And
Right.
I paid it immediately because I didn't want to be wanted in Texas. So that's, yeah, on the, you talking about those sensors here on Highway 101, and that if they put up one, then they can put up a dozen. So that's going to be something we definitely should look at. So I like the idea that we're voting on it and making it regional. And here's why: we're always outnumbered by Portland. We're always outnumbered by Eugene. And if it's regionalized, as in the sense of who's voting on it, because they're mostly impacted by it, makes a lot more sense, because you wouldn't be able to get a toll passed here in Southern Oregon anywhere. There's just no way. I mean, because we use the roads probably more than city dwellers. Number one, I would think, because we got farther distances. When you guys travel, you travel shorter distances for a lot longer time. Well, we travel longer distances for a longer time. So you know what I mean? It's a little bit different way of traveling. So I think, in my mind, it seems like these types of tolls would be detrimental in rural areas for the fact that you just stated. We provide the food, the fishing, the agriculture, all the other stuff that goes to the city would have to go through those tolling. And guess what? We're not going to pay for it. We're already stretched
Right.
amount, and that's going to drive up cost of food. It's going to drive up costs of any of the products or material that you pull out of rural Oregon.
Yeah. And one of the things I found that's very interesting is I'm talking to folks, and so I never quite introduced myself, but I'm I don't know, 35 plus year, maybe closer to 40-year Oregonian, and raised my family here and so on, and have seen a lot of growth. I was surprised when and I'm the chief petitioner and author of IP31. I was surprised as I've talked to people and organizations, because we have to gather 180,000 signatures. We need 167 or something thousand good ones. So we got to gather a few extra ones. And any Oregon voter is allowed to sign. So that's the only restriction. You got to be a registered Oregon voter. But as I've been talking to people, and particularly organizations, about this, I'm surprised a little bit by the opposition to tolling. And one of the things that I have found is that where I thought there might be opposition, there isn't. And the bulk of Oregonians aren't in that top 1%. We're not in the top 10% or 20 or 25% either. Those folks can afford to pay tolls. I don't want to say they don't care, but it's not going to affect them when they're paying tolls. But remember, I started at the beginning. I said ODOT was chartered initially to make this congestion relief. So they were going to change the toll price depending upon the time of the day to try and even out the traffic a little bit. So instead of driving to work at 7 or 8 in the morning, again, I'm speaking metro-wise here, but 7 or 8 in the morning, so you're getting there to 8 or 9 or whatever, they wanted you to drive at 10 or 11 in the morning, or maybe even earlier. But the problem is the bulk of the people that are driving those hours, they are the people that are, they're in the coffee shops, they're stocking the grocery stores, they're getting ready to load up the delivery vans, they're at the plumbing companies, they're the people that are doing the office work and so on. They can't shift their schedules around. They can't shift when they arrive, and they generally are in the middle to lower incomes. So there's great support for this initiative. And again, just a quick reminder, because you talked about right to vote before toll roads. It's right to vote before tolls on bridges as well. Any sort of conveyance, and for what it's worth, doesn't affect you probably down in your community, but up here they're putting in, $60-80 million bicycle bridges over the highway or over the river. They could toll bicycles. This requires a vote before that too. So even the bicyclists should be on board.
Well, let me tell you, I've heard, and I'm not sure, someone was telling me this, whether it was from a news story or just the word on the street here, is that they were looking to take our Bullard's Bridge. I don't know if you're familiar with Southern Oregon or Bandon, but Bullard's Bridge is the only is one of the few ways in and out of Bandon. And
okay, I know where it is. Yeah.
They want to get rid of Bullard's Bridge and put up a new bridge to accommodate biking. And they were talking about putting tolling on it to pay for that new bridge. And I'm like, at this point, I really don't have any problems against bicyclists, but now I'm going to. And so you know what I mean? It's like they're causing a divide where there shouldn't be a divide. And I can understand why they want to do that, because it is dangerous to cross the bridge if you're on a bicycle and if you're on foot. It wasn't designed for that. It was designed to serve the purposes of the rural area. And that's what we got.
Right. And it's not just issues like that. And you were talking specifically about bikes, but there's a lot of bridges in this state that need maintenance, that need repair or upgrades. Yep. One of the bridges just down the hill from me here, I-205 over the Willamette River, that bridge is being replaced to become earthquake resilient. Now, mind you, we're discussing additional capacity, and that's a different issue. But at least the theory is when the big one hits, that there will be at least one bridge that's still intact over the Willamette River. And we need that for emergency vehicles, for all of the supplies, all of the repairs, all those sorts of things. And that, by the way, on the I-5 bridge is another thing they're doing, is making it earthquake resilient as well. So to whatever numbers.
Right.
So we need to invest in that, but we need to invest in the potholes and the drivability of our roads. And as you know, in those places where safety or if the capacity doesn't always have to be vehicles, the capacity could be for bicycles, or could be for pedestrians. You've got a tourism industry down there that you didn't have 40, 50 years ago, or not to the magnitude that you
Right.
have now, and you need to adjust and accommodate for that. So we were talking about the regional vote. So it would be pretty easy for the Eugene and the Portland area folks to say, well, let's just toll the whole rest of the state. Let's all vote everybody else to pay tolls, but nothing up here. That's not
Right.
fair.
Right.
And so that's part of the reason that we reeled this in as well. I don't want Eugene and Portland, at least in this area, to be able to dominate the politics and the taxing that's going down in your area. But if it's a regional decision and you all think it's a good idea and you have this discussion, then great, go for it. But when they add that extra bicycle lane, you might say, maybe we need an extra vehicle lane too, because again, I'm an electrical engineer, not a civil engineer, but it seems like if you're going to go to all that trouble, adding an extra lane is not twice the cost. It might be 10% more, 15% more, and that might be a good investment in your economy for the future.
Oh yeah, and it's we're expanding out here. It's growing. We've got big projects that they're considering in Coos Bay, and anything that happens in Coos Bay will affect the surrounding area, because housing is really tight out here. It's very expensive to live out here. I believe that's intentional. I believe that's been done on purpose. And tourism, I believe, makes up between 25 to 33% of our economy. We depend on it. But the thing is we also, like I said, and I go back to agriculture, fishing, forestry, and mining, those are our major industries. And I think we should tax accordingly. And it just doesn't seem fair that we put a lot more tax on people who are doing the pushing and not so much on the people who are doing the riding. You know what I mean? Does it kind of make sense? So,
yeah.
Well,
and I think one of the things that, again, this is be a discussion you'd have with ODOT if you say you want to replace that bridge or whatever piece of highway, whatever it is. I write software for part of my job. When they read that tag out of your car, they know who you are, right? Because they know where your credit card is, so they know who you are, and they know where you're registered, where you live, where you've registered for that tag. And you could have a deal with Oregon or ODOT that says, you know what, if you live within the county, or you live within the city limits, or X number of miles, whatever it is, that you would get a discount on your tolls, or your tolls would be capped. And so many of the tolls would actually be paid, the full fare tolls would be paid by the tourists, the out-of-towners. And, we already have motel taxes and hotel taxes and tourist taxes. And that's kind of a traditional way. You mentioned, 20, 30% of your revenues. That's a reasonably well accepted way of using these kinds of revenues. And you know what? If Amazon can figure out how to negotiate with ODOT statewide and say we get a 10% discount on tolls, that they're going to prepay, or they're going to do something, or whatever that is, that's something that's a discussion can be had, but can only be had before the fact. So you put up my website here, and let me just tag on a couple of things, because tolling may be a little bit new to your audience. Up at the top here, I mentioned that Governor Kotek had paused tolling. She, in 2024, because of the pressure we were bringing with our initiative and the negative press where this would impact the 2024 elections, she deferred tolling until 2026. She will say, well, it's because the projects are deferred and we haven't been able to get started and get the shovels and the tractors and so on. But the reality is it was a political decision. But tolls are coming. You've probably heard that the House Bill 2025, the 14 billion B with a billion, and trimmed down to $12 billion transportation package, didn't even make it out of committee. The Republicans were opposed to it mostly. A few crossed over. The Democrats couldn't, with a supermajority, couldn't get it out of committee because they had concerns about it as well. And now it's like, I don't know what your papers down there say, but Director Chris Strickler of ODOT is just his eyes are so red from crying so much. He's going to lay off hundreds and hundreds of employees. Actually, he's going to close hundreds and hundreds of open positions that are not hired. So don't don't buy the story right at face value. And oh, the people that are wearing the white shirts and the ties that are the executives and the high paid folks, there's no trimming of that staff.
Of
It's
course not.
all, at least the proposals, down at, the people that are actually, plowing the snow, or in your case, whatever, sweeping the sand off the
Right.
streets, or whatever happens at the coast down there, fixing potholes. They're saying, oh no, we're not going to be able to do any of that. It's kind of like whenever your city budget gets cut, what's the first thing goes away? It's the police department, right? It's the fire
Right.
department, because that's
Right.
that's what makes the headlines.
Always,
And that's
always.
not true, by the way, but it's what they threaten.
It's what they threaten. It's always what they
Yeah.
threaten, and that's of course what they were doing with this as well. And I want to continue on with your website because I think you got some interesting things we should talk about. But it was funny you were talking about only tolling the tourist. Okay, that was a recommendation of mine several years ago at a commissioners meeting. I said, why don't we put tolls at the end of the boundaries for the county, and we'll just toll anyone coming here from anywhere else. Okay, well, that's what we'll do. We'll use driver's license. And they thought about it. They did think about it. So I don't know how legal it was, but we have considered that. So
Yeah, and the electronic tolling makes that easier.
yeah,
And as you say, they'll take a picture if you're from out of town or whatever. But do recognize that a lot of your county folks, I'm sure, drive back in and they're headed up I-5 or up or down I-5 to go wherever they're going, and north and south on 101. And I should say, just as a reminder, there are only two agencies in this state currently authorized to toll. One of them is ODOT, the other is PBOT, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, and they are already authorized. So when we talk about this transportation package going away or not being approved, and it will come back in some other form,
right.
tolling is an easy lever to pull. IP31 is a statewide initiative. It covers all roads, all bridges, in the state of Oregon. And when we get this on the 2026 ballot, so we're in our final year of gathering signatures, we have to have all our signatures basically by the end of June next year. This will actually be an initiative on the 2026 ballot, and we'll need support from the voters everywhere across this state. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience.
Let me ask you, do you have captains in the different counties yet? And is Coos County one of them?
We do not, and I'm interested in folks that might take some lead or at least start to show some interest. We're in the process of ordering a new batch of signs, yard signs. I say road signs because I keep thinking roads here, but yard signs and those sorts of things. So to get the visibility up, that again, any state highway, that little white zigzag sign, not the roundish one, that's a county highway, but the one that's got the Crown's hat or whatever on the top of it, and of course the interstate highways could be tolled. And you need to be aware that it's coming. Let's talk about gas tax for just a moment as well.
Go for it.
You mentioned, and one of the big proposals and one of the things that always gets people's attention is we want to add 25 cents to the state gas tax. I got to tell you, the nice thing about the gas tax is you can't escape it. So it's fair. Everybody's paying it.
Right.
And it's something that we're used to. Oregon was the first state in the nation to have a gas tax. Why? Because we had all these muddy roads and they needed funding for it. So a little trivia for you there. But the collection overhead on a gas tax is less than half of a cent. It's less than 0.5%.
So it's
when you get to
it's very efficient.
It's very efficient. It's
Yeah.
easy to collect. The farmers don't pay a gas tax, right? Because they get their fuel a different way.
That's
The
right.
diesel is, I think it's green or however they do all that stuff. So this is really about people driving on roads. The tolling tax, it is a new tax, a new revenue source. When it starts, its collection overhead is 86%. The bridge right down below me, a mile and a half from my house, 86%. Every $8 that you pay, it's the $9th that goes to no more capacity. It goes to somebody's coffers.
Well, that
it's
ain't
basically
worth
a
it.
new administration. It's crazy.
That's
As
not
I
even
mentioned,
worth it, man. That's not even.
Oh, I know.
Why are we having this conversation about tolling? That fact right there alone should kill the deal. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're talking
Now-
about a gas tax, like you said, nobody gets to escape that because it's done right there very efficiently.
Right.
But to have, what did you say, 86%?
86% here in West Linn.
Holy shit, man. Excuse my language, but damn, that's a lot of money.
It is. So in fairness, that will come down as they toll more highways because there's a certain amount of overhead they put in place. But if we look at our friends up north in Seattle, their overheads are 40 to 60%. They've been collecting tolls not forever, but for certainly a decade or so. Highway 99 and the bridges over the lakes there and so on. They're at 40 to 60% overheads collecting tolls. So it's not an efficient revenue source, and it's not fair because it doesn't cover the bulk of people. But you also mentioned electric vehicles. So let's talk about electric vehicles. As we're recording this, it's early July. Back in January, February-ish, 2025, January, February-ish of this year, ODOT celebrated the registration of the 100,000th electric vehicle in Oregon. I'm like, that's a lot of EVs. I mean, I see them on the roads. I didn't know there were that many, but that sounds like a lot. So first thing I did is I went to Google and said, so how many vehicles are registered in Oregon? 4.1 million. That's with an M, not a billion in this case, a million. And 3.2-ish, I think, or so are personal vehicles. So EVs are a really they're not zero, but they're 1 or 2% of total vehicles on the road. So when you hear Director Strickler at ODOT saying, hey, the gas tax is going away, the EVs aren't paying their fair share, that maybe is where we get to over 10 or 15 years when that becomes 10 or 15 or 20% of our vehicles, if it does. I'm not sure that will happen. I don't know how many EV charging stations you all have, but they're not enough up here for even the density of the city.
Right.
And electricity is expensive too, but that's another issue. But those EVs, they're not paying a gas tax. That's true, but they are paying slightly higher registration fees. So they're starting to offset some of the additional costs of the EV, not by miles driven, but at least by registration. There is another proposal that's bouncing around. It's called a road use charge, RUC. And what it does is it measures using GPS or your odometer, how many miles do you drive? Well, that's the same as the gas tax, right? How many miles do you drive? Except they can't measure the gas coming in. They now have to actually look inside your car or use your GPS, which would be an electronic reading from your car that says, how many miles have you driven? And that would be truly the fair way of saying, hey, it doesn't matter with your EV or if you're gas or if you're pedal power, we can measure the number of miles you drive. The challenge with that is that folks are concerned that, particularly if they use GPS, that they're going to know where you drive. And they have to keep some record of that because what they're promising us is, when you drive in Washington, you drive down to California, we're not going to charge you the road use charge for Oregon because you're out of state. And that sounds fair.
Right. And I don't want the state to know I'm playing the ponies either, right? Yeah.
Oh, no, exactly. But when you're in California, guess what? There's going to be one of those exchange agreements that says they're going to charge you their road use charge, and we're going to charge the Californians when they're up here. And do you go to the ponies, or do you, wherever you go when you go after work on Friday, whatever that may be, in theory, they would have access to it. But the easy answer would be is, whenever you go, we have a DEQ is where we usually register our vehicles. I don't know what you do, but you could go to your DMV and they could just read your odometer. And they do that every year, every 2 years. And they charge you based on the number of miles that you charge. They don't know where you drove, but they can give you an idea. So look for those sorts of revenue streams to come as time goes forward.
Or we could start demanding more fiscal responsibility out of our state government, because I think there's enough room to cut in the state government that we really wouldn't need new taxes. We are the highest tax state in the union. And the fact is our government is bloated. It's got a lot of superfluous, redundant programs that I think could be eliminated, but we're just... Our state government is controlled by people who are, conducive to wanting more and more government, more government employees.
More control. Yeah. It's just a fascinating comment. When I started this off, IP31 is a grassroots campaign. I stuff envelopes, half an hour a day, myself sending petitions out to people. We don't have a staff. You look at my bookshelf. This is my office. I don't have a fancy place to do this. This is my home office. But we're very grassroots. Oh, I lost my train of thought there. We're talking about the government. Oh, when I started this off, I mentioned, it was just a group of us at a Starbucks, and I said, we can do better. We can put this in place. Turns out it's not the tolling that's upset. I mean, the tolling gets the state's attention. It's the words in front of it, vote before. The fact that we as the citizens would want accountability and transparency from our government and require it, we
Mhm.
demand it. It's not like we give you permission because we elected you and sent you to Salem. It's okay, you can go do all these things you do. No,
Right.
we have the right. This will give us the right to vote before tolls. You can vote yes if the proposal is good. By all means, vote yes, but you can also vote no. And between taking on Salem that way, which wasn't my intent, but it certainly it was a practical way of saying this works, and then taking on ODOT, which is is $6 billion. Well, $14 billion was their most recent package. That was a
Right.
2-year package, but like $6 billion a year. Taking those folks on, I'm a grassroots guy. They got consultants that wouldn't even fit in my office, right? They got more of those people creating stuff and so on.
Damn
We,
right.
the people, have to stand up here. And by the way, I'm a pragmatist. Voting before tolls, we could do that, but I don't want to vote before everything in Salem. We also
No.
have to learn as constituents, as voters. We need to be smart about who we send to Salem and DC for that matter. And God bless those with all the seniority and all the experience. We need to rotate people through because I think they get too uncomfortable. Politics was never meant to be a career. It was meant to be a
No.
service. And
No.
and when they're citizens and they serve, they think like citizens. When they're career politicians, they don't think like citizens anymore.
So they passed the legislation directly affecting 3 cities here on the south coast of Oregon, and it took away part of their charter where their charter allowed voters to vote on utility rates. And the city kept, and most of the time we gave them the utility rates because we knew they needed it, but we were in charge of that. The legislature took that away from us, which really pissed off a lot of us constituents. But the reason that we had it set up in our charter was because they were conjoining the utility money with the general fund. You know what I mean? There were
Right?
kind of erasing the blurring the differences, and so that's why we passed it, and we maintained it because we wanted more transparency. And when they wanted a rate increase, it was amazing how they went out of their way to answer all our questions, to alleviate all our worries, and they were much more transparent about it than what they
Yep.
are in other cities. And I know this because I go to other cities as someone who's an activist, as a reporter, and I watch the way they do it, and it's a much more hidden way that they do it from their voters, from their constituents, than as if it would be going to the voters. And I think that's what this does for a vote, because I wouldn't want to vote on everything. 95% of the things they do in the legislature is mundane and boring, and I don't want to vote for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
4,000 bills, we'd be up every day with our little toggle switch voting yay or nay.
That's
I
right.
don't want that. That's
Yeah.
why we hire people. But something like
Right.
this is very important because, like I said, their fiscal responsibility is lacking. Number one. Number two, because we are highly taxed, I think we need to see where the sausage is being made and if some of that sausage is being wasted. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's and so you're leaning on something here, which is it's the voice of the people. It's our country. It's our money. It's our county. It's our
Mhm,
cities.
mhm.
We want to have that voice. I would love to be able to trust all of my elected leaders, but we still need to have a spotlight on them. I appreciate guys like you that are doing the reporting and putting a broader focus. I have to narrow my focus. People keep asking me questions about transportation and ODOT. I'm like, I got to keep my focus narrowed because there's a lot of things that need to be done. This transportation bill didn't have really any audit teeth in it. It wasn't looking at efficiency in ODOT. We need to do those things and kind of do a reset and come back at this. So let me talk for just a moment about just a couple of practical things. You mentioned,
Okay.
do we have committee chairs in the counties? I would love people to reach out to us. Our website is votebeforetolls.org. And the initiative is IP31, but vote before tolls. And on that website, there's a little survey form, and you can just register there. Tell us a little bit about you, what you think about tolling. If you want to participate at any level, any volunteer from signs on up. Certainly outside of the metro area here in the Portland area, we need people that can distribute signs for us. We're not going to mail those out one by one. That's way too expensive. Yard signs and so on. So there's a little survey there. There also is a button on the homepage that says you can request petitions. You can both download petitions, which are single signer petitions, which you can print out yourself. Here in Oregon, you can't electronically sign petitions. You and I are a little bit older guys. All the young folks say, I just want to e-sign it. You can't do that in Oregon. It's just not legal.
It's just
you can't
not
do it,
legal.
but you can print as many copies as you want. So if you're just doing friends and family, but guess what? The uptake on people that want to sign this is really high. It's a great conversation starter. Did you know they could toll Highway 101, or they want to toll this bridge or whatever? We will send you the 10 up petitions. We print those and mail them to you. And you say, that's not very efficient. But it turns out our elections division's a little bit picky about how they're printed. They have to be double-sided and all that kind of stuff. And we don't want a signature sheet to be thrown out because it was printed funny. And I did this in the 2024 election. And I had people printing their own double-sided, and it was messy. And I don't want to go through that again. So a few dollars that we invest, and that, again, that's clicking on the yellow button there. But please click register. We'll keep you updated. We are expanding our messaging to include the entire state and rural. And honestly, there's more red outside of these metro areas, and I think that's where we're going to get a lot of support, and we can get a lot of signatures. We can get this thing on the ballot and get this thing done. I'm confident if we get it on the ballot, it's going to pass. Probably with a 2/3 majority. There'll be people who aren't informed and so on.
Yeah,
maybe even higher. But the limiter here is getting enough signatures, and we have until June of next year to do that. Yeah.
And so right now you've got the county fairs going on. Have you gotten any agreements with county Republican county parties who are willing to have your petition at their booth, or even Democrat affiliated parties in different counties who are doing that? Because that would be a good way to get that out there. I don't know if you've tried that yet or not.
Yeah, the Democrats a little tougher because their leadership in Salem, regardless of how the county feels, the leadership in Salem is like, in fact, they don't even want to mention IP31 because the idea that we would have accountability, and there, by the way, is the text of the initiative. It's really short. Most of it is just definitions. It says a car is powered by something, a vehicle is powered by something. So the Democrats have been a little less enthusiastic about formally, from a party perspective, taking these petitions out, but the Republicans are very much in support of this. Please reach out to your county folks. We're in the process of doing that. I just sent out about a half dozen manila envelopes yesterday for county fairs, and I honestly can't remember. I don't remember anything in Coos County, but I would have to check my records. And to the extent that folks in Eastern Oregon are listening to this, you all are vulnerable as well. You got 1 or 2 highways going east-west and 1 or 2 going north-south. That's a perfect place to toll, right? And there's all kinds of traffic there. It's not just local folks. There's tourists that drive through and so on, and you're vulnerable to tolling as well. And at a minimum, help us out. Help us, call our government to accountability.
And I'm thinking, here in the rural Oregon, we got a lot of back roads and stuff, but they're dangerous to take the back roads. They're not as well maintained. But it seems to me, if you're going to toll roads and you're encouraging people to use roads that aren't normally traveled and aren't as well maintained, which then would cause more people to have accidents, because I think it's 40 to 45% of all accidents are actually caused by the road itself and the conditions. So you're causing a situation where people are going to want to drive in those conditions and avoid them, and won't avoid them if they're being told. Yeah.
Absolutely. And while I never want to see anybody's bumper or car door get dinged up, one of the real problems with a lot of traffic on these smaller roads is their communities. You're driving through cities, or you're driving certainly
Yeah.
at the end of driveways and so on. And so you got kids out there for school buses or riding their bikes to go see their friends a half mile down the road or whatever it might be. And there's real safety issues. And
Yep.
ODOT up here, this is what we call diversion. When there's a $5 toll, you might go an extra 3 or 4 miles around through the local road, or get off the highway or whatever to avoid that toll, particularly if you're doing that 2 or 3 times a day or whatever. So we need that's called diversion of traffic, and we need offsets as part of the funding of the programs for this tolling. Hopefully it's increasing capacity for the main line, but on the
Right.
sidelines, on the non-tolled roads, you need to say, do we need extra stripes? Do we need slow something down? Or do we need a little bit wider road here? We need an extra stop sign or signal, whatever the solution is, to keep the safety on the side roads as well.
Oh yeah, I completely this that yeah keep and I didn't even think of the kids. You're right. You're increasing the danger for the families, the kids, and in rural Oregon, you can go down one of these roads and there's tractors busted. You've got cows crossing,
Yeah,
horse, sheep,
yeah.
cattle, you name it, and yeah, it's not the safest
Or,
place to
or
be diverting
or,
traffic.
or you got the local residents who aren't in as big a hurry as somebody saying, I got to get to
That's
Bandon
right.
because I got a golf tee time, right?
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden these cars are barreling down on you or whatever. And everybody, if it's reasonable, they're going to try and save by $5 if they can. That's another beer
Yep.
or Starbucks or something, at a minimum, so it's just messy.
We
It's just
and
messy.
that's a good point. That's something that's completely different in driving habits. When I go to the cities, it's always fast and furious. You know what I mean? It's always bumper
Yeah.
to bumper rush hour traffic. Here in Coos County and on in southern Oregon in the rural areas, we cruise, man. We're just taking our
Yeah.
time. We have nowhere to go in a hurry, and this is our lifestyle. And you getting
Yeah.
behind us bumper to bumper isn't going to help anything. But I
Yeah.
also the point another point I wanted to make, you were talking about earlier. This isn't really voting on tolling because it has nothing really to do with the tolling. All it does is give people a choice of whether they want it or not. This is really, you're giving
Well,
people a choice. How could you not want
exactly.
this? This is an
What
opportunity to have a choice. Shit, man.
to have a choice and to optimize the outcome too, right?
Yeah.
If ODOT says we want 4 lanes one direction and 1 lane the other, you say, well, no, I want to pay for that, but I want 2 lanes each direction, or whatever that is. I'm being a little absurd there, but the idea that you could say, there's a better way from a community perspective to solve this problem. Let's work together on that. We can do
Yeah.
better together.
So you not only do you get to vote on it, because you now get to vote on it, you get two different aspects that are really put in there. You get the transparency that wasn't going to come with it if you didn't have the tolling. You also get the negotiation aspect. When do you ever get to negotiate with the government? And this gives you the tool to basically put them in a vice and force them to come to the table and make those negotiations after being fully transparent. And then in the end, you and I get to decide whether we are going to accept the deal.
Right.
Damn, I don't know how anyone could not want this. Even if you want
I
tolls,
know.
this would be, you know what I mean? This would be a good question
Yeah.
because then it puts you in the negotiation seat. And for those who want tolls, I can guarantee you the reason they say they want tolls is because we want more lanes. We want to be able to get through traffic faster almost every time. Well, if they're not going to build new roads on these tolls, then this gives you the ability to negotiate that. Wow.
Exactly. And that is just so important. It's to have a voice. And again, you can vote yes or you can vote no, but you get a seat at the table. It's our money. It's our asphalt. It's us that has to live with it long after the paving machines go away, right? So this just really important, and it does, as I say, that vote before has got salient attention, and so hopefully there's even a bigger and longer term impact, which is like, no, we need to engage the public. You mentioned you go to what was the power utility rates and so on in those hearings,
Mhm.
and I've been to a lot of those kinds of meetings as well. And you go in there, and the public gets to testify for 60 seconds or 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
3
And
minutes.
the commissioners or whatever are up there and they say, Thank you, Rob, for thank you, Mr. Taylor, probably they would
Mhm.
say, and thank you for your input. Next,
Yeah.
and they never respond. There's no interaction. So even though they are listening, are they really hearing?
Yeah.
No, they're going through a
Right.
process that's required. When we got to vote, we get to vote. And it's powerful. So I would
It's
love to keep you up to date on this. Again, any in your audience that have been inspired by some of this, please reach out. Votebeforetolls.org. We're a friendly group. I would be remiss because we're self-funded as well. I would be remiss if I didn't say that we could use some money as well, because we have a political action committee. We also have a 501c3, so kind of at what level or whatever your giving looks like. But on the political action committee, your family donation up to $100 is a tax credit, meaning that if you write us that, or I was going to say write a check. I'm an old guy, right? If you go to votebeforetolls.org and donate online, that $100 will come back to you 100% as a tax credit, dollar for dollar, against your Oregon taxes when you file your 2025 taxes. And I would hope you do that again in 2026. So we can get the state of Oregon to pay actually for some of these signs and some of our costs and the postage and those sorts of things. Nobody's getting paid here. Then on the nonprofit side, if you want to do more than $100, you want the charitable deduction, and that's beneficial to you. Feel free to check that box as well. So we appreciate your support. I appreciate speaking to you, and look forward to petitions going out and petitions coming back.
You got it. And I want to thank you very much for giving us the time. We will get you back on to give an update on this. I want to keep on top of this because, like you said, you're on a time limit, and maybe every couple of months, if we can get you back and encourage people here in Coos County and elsewhere to get out there and get these votes, that'd be great. Can you hold on a second? I'm going to take us off here and shut off the recording. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob.
All right. You got it. And thank you.